panel, the name of the panel is Transforming Project Management. So the other panelists that will be joining us are Sophie Halbeisen, who is Director of Business Development at Plunet. We also have Doug Strock, who is the Vice President of GLTaC. And we also have Jean-Francois, who is the founder of Consoltec, the developer of FlowFit. And now on to Richard again.
So yeah, Sophie, what do you think is the biggest challenge that a tools provider would face when looking into the future of project management? Do you have some thoughts about that?
I do. I have a lot of thoughts on that. Thank you so much, Richard. I'll kind of switch my camera view here with my setup. And yeah, thank you so much for having us today. And yeah, the challenges for project management are obviously is something that we have to focus on a lot, and kind of looking in the future is always hard, as we all experience right now. But what we did, we kind of look at 4 different pillars when it comes to project management and the different challenges that come with it. First of all, of course, the role of the project manager. So we have, the project manager, our main stakeholder as a business management system. And we see how the role is changing, and project management by exception becomes a topic that comes up more and more. What that means is moving away from manual tasks and repetitive tasks, so people can actually use their skills for the more complex tasks that require human interaction. So going away from file upload, download, vendor assignment, PO creation, all of these things, and more into soft skills. But of course, that's a challenge as well, because on the one hand, you're automating a lot, but on the other hand, you have these new roles like relationship management, we have crisis management, and giving feedback to vendors, all of these things that you can't automate. So for that, you kind of have to make sure people have the data they need to do project management by exceptions, to know all of these exceptions and how to handle them. So a lot of soft skills are required for these roles now. Another thing we see is that project managers are now using software, not just for their daily tasks, but they're really using the technology they have. And usually that's a bunch of technologies in one company, not just one, and kind of using that as a USP rather than just using it for their internal tasks. So a lot of LSPs say they're like technology-enabled language service providers, which even though sometimes I feel like I hear it a little too often, but it's very true. Like your technology becomes part of the service you offer. So people have to learn how to use the technology, but also how to use them as a unique selling proposition when helping a customer with their specific needs. So yeah, that changes the role of the project manager. So it's not just about organizational skills anymore. You kind of have to be a little bit of a consultant and salesperson at the same time. Then again, COVID kind of showed that to all of us, but we already saw that before, that project managers are located all around the world. So it's harder to standardize if people are not all in the same room, all in the same network. And it's a challenge to create an environment where people can easily work remotely in different time zones in different countries. There are different laws, different taxes. And then of course, when it comes to access rights and settings, to make sure people can only access the data they should see, do the things in the system that they should do, but of course also have the flexibility to see everything they need to see. So the balance is hard to find sometimes. And as a tool provider, it's kind of like a balancing act from making sure there are the restrictions in place to make that work secure. But of course, also to make it flexible. But I'm getting to security in a little bit as well, because that's a whole different topic. But yeah, of course, I also want to talk about automation, because automation is, I feel like, the #1 topic everybody looks at, or the role of automation for the future of project management. When it comes to automation versus human interaction, we always, with our customers, really want to look at which processes can be automated and also should be automated, because not everything that you can automate should be automated, and not every project is actually good for full automation. So the more exceptions you have, the more complex a project is, or if you need creativity or empathy, there are a lot of projects that, yeah, can simply not be automated, where you need the human touch. Because if you have a lot of exceptions and you try to automate them all, sometimes the configuration and yeah, the aftermath that comes afterwards is almost more work than the automation saved you. So kind of looking at cost savings and time savings when it comes to automation is also a big challenge, yeah, that we're focusing on when looking in the future. And another thing is we are only as good as our data in general, I think, but also when it comes to automation, because if your data isn't clean, if you don't have a clean data set, if you don't have everything from your price lists, your vendors, all the classifications of vendors, of customers, of projects, if that's not clean, then of course automation cannot really work, or an automation can be false. We had actually a presentation with memoQ just, I think it was last week, and we're talking about automation, and one person in the audience was asking, well, what is if the client chooses the wrong domain, and all of a sudden I get an automated quote, but it's not a technical translation, the customer chose the wrong thing. So of course automation also means that you have to either have a very educated customer, or you have a use case that is that simple that a customer cannot just make a wrong choice that then kicks off the wrong process. So a lot of configuration, a lot of thought needs to go into it. So now I feel like I almost sound like I don't like automation. I'm a big supporter of automation, but of course only for the projects where it really makes sense. So the simple ones where, yeah, not a lot of human interaction is required, that can just go through very easily. And then the next pillar is for us, of course, the role of yeah, the production environment. So the role of CAT, MT, and NMT, and how to integrate those production environments in a BMS, a business management system with a project management focus. And there are two things. First of all, of course, from a tool perspective, we do see that as part of the CAT tool. So it's integrated into the workflows on the CAT tool side. So we have great partners, obviously memoQ, that's why we're speaking here. And Richard, you also mentioned it earlier, templates. So that's kind of how we see the future, that in the project management tool, you can already pre-select a workflow that already pre-selects the memoQ template. So basically, based on that selection, a lot of automation can take place. And on the memoQ side, you can the template basically decides what kind of MT engine to choose, and kind of having the flexibility to use whatever level of machine translation or yeah, TMs you need for that particular project. Or if it's something where you say, you know what, this is just something a human needs to do, I actually need to put a copyright on that one. And then when we look at the industry in general, we do really see, yeah, all of these new technology as something that opens the door for content that we can now translate, or that our customers can translate, that would have not been translated otherwise. So it's really cool to see that now we have this big range of projects that project managers work with, rather than being replaced, just having, yeah, a greater variety. And then lastly, my favorite topic, looking at security. I call it security versus automation, even though of course these two can go hand in hand. I'm not saying they can't, but there are very often cases where we see that it's hard to further automate when it comes to project management, because on the other hand, we also have all of these increasing security requirements in the industry. So we really have to think about, and it's a huge challenge to see how can we make sure everything stays secure, having all of these security measures in place, like password rules, two-factor authentication. We have all these new laws, GDPR in Europe. We have similar laws now in the US, for example, in California, making sure to integrate all of that, making it as secure as possible without creating extra steps. steps, because security usually, yeah, creates a little bit of an extra step. And that's definitely also a challenge we see for the future. It's not unsolvable, but definitely something you have to aware of. And I think two-factor authentication is always such a good example, because people want to have, yeah, want to make sure you have a second authentication, but that also means you can log in as fast. Yeah, there are a lot of security things to think about as well when it comes to project management. So yeah, coming back to your question, there's a lot of challenges. These four are the main ones. I think, yeah, I see or we see for project managers. And because I'm trying to stay on German time as the German here, I feel like I can definitely not take any more time than that was allocated. So with this, I would want to hand back to you, Richard, and yeah, save some time for the panel.
Vielen Dank, Frau Halbeisen.
Gerne.
Yeah, so Sophie mentioned security, and that certainly is a very big buzzword in our world too, in the memoQ world. Another big buzzword that we hear talked about a lot is artificial intelligence. And Jean-Francois, when do you anticipate that there will be a real integration of artificial intelligence in a translation project management solution? What are your thoughts there?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
And we see you.
Thank you, Sophie. Well, I think that artificial intelligence is already in some project management solution right now. Regarding translation management project, I'm not sure that we are at this point now, but it's a really interesting topic. I think that in the coming years, it will be present at every step. I know that, yes, of course, we still need human intervention, of course, it will be forever, I hope, but artificial intelligence should come in the translation management project really soon. We already start some kind of proof of concept in different approach, like for instance, for the risk management and for also task distribution also. So I think it will come shortly. Okay, and this is my topic today. So I was really interested about this new techniques about artificial intelligence. So, but first, I would like to thank memoQ for giving me the chance to speak today. And for those who are not very familiar with Consoltec, we provide a translation project management solution called FlowFit, and which also integrates memoQ. So the first topic I would like to talk, I have two topics. I'm not sure I would have the time to speak about the two topics today. So the first one is the evolution of the project management from Excel files to, or I should play the control maybe here. Okay, give me 1 minute. You share request remote control. So, yeah, okay. So the evolution of project management. So when I started, it was 18 years ago now, it's been a while, working in project management. Generally we found like Excel file or database access databases that were used to manage projects. So the evolution of this application went through a real project management application. So to help project manager to be more efficient, save time and money, and to have a better control over workflows and processes. It looks like now most of the translation management application are kind of reaching a peak. And maybe it's time now to evaluate how artificial intelligence could solve some issues that traditional approaches struggle with. I will mention some of those during my presentation. So first, what is the state of the art of project management application today. So we have some what I call basic automation. For instance, you have workflow automation, due date calculation, communication between stakeholders, resource availability management, quotes, invoices, etc., sending reminder, etc. So you have all a lot of features for using automation, and you have even more advanced automation features now, like including like a REST API, for instance, where you can control your processes. You have TM and integration in workflows, for instance, and where you can, for instance, with memoQ, you can embed your memoQ workflows inside the project management application, and you can mix memoQ task or non-memoQ task inside your workflows. Connectors also, you have what I call a virtual coordinator that give you some possible automation based on project information. So yeah, so you have a bunch of features that could really help to automate a lot your project today. So what is in artificial intelligence? I have a definition. I'm not sure that's a good one, but I'll try. Okay, so it's a kind of techniques of mimics that with mimics human intelligence. It tries to. I'm not sure that would be the right definition. It could be used. It could be done by natural language processing, for instance, machine learning, pattern recognitions, and it covers a lot of domains. And as you know, in the translation domain, machine translation already use it a lot. Okay, so what I would like to introduce today is how can artificial intelligence could help in project management. So we have, as the complexity of project management increase, and the use of AI could give some more valuable information to take more informed decision. And I will illustrate that after. For instance, you can predict and reduce risk factors. For instance, it could be corrective action based on historical of data. Of course, you need to have data. And as Sophie mentioned before, is that data is not good or corrected, you will not have good information. So it will be useless to use any technique, any artificial intelligence in this case also. So it can be used to track, to use data, to use and tracking change to warn, for instance, project manager when some risk could arise, like due dates or quality or cost or customer satisfaction. That could be, so AI could help in this case to reduce the risk factors of projects. It would not replace human intervention, of course, but it will help project managers. Another domain where it could be used is for optimizing allocation of resources, like for estimates, for instance, workload optimization. It could be really complex to distribute tasks among teams. And maybe here in this case, AI could really be helpful. Assigning also the right task to the right resource at the right time, with managing with risk factor management based on machine learning information also could be interesting. Also, smarter automation based on historical data, like sending some reminders. It looks like pretty simple. You send some reminders because the task has to be completed at this time, so you can send some reminders. But if you use artificial intelligence, it could be like more refined. So you don't, based on machine learning, the machine could suggest you or could automate some kind of automation sending reminders with a more refined approach. It could be also project manager turnover, for instance. If you use if you use AI for identifying some working patterns, for instance, it could be easier to onboard a new project manager in a company. It could be also messaging bots. So you could ask, like you do, for instance, with Google Assistant, like show me what urgent today, show me what my team is working on, etc., on different devices. And also using natural language processing to scan communication between different stakeholders, for getting sign of potential problems. So these are some of the possibilities where AI could help in project management solution. I found that really interesting. It could be a little bit scary also. It's the same. It could lead to the same concern of machine translation when it comes to PM and artificial intelligence. But it always depends on how you use a tool or technology. So I see that more than an assistant to project managers than a replacement of project managers. So I see the potential of artificial intelligence to help project manager to get more informed and to take better decisions. So I don't know how much I'm.
Yeah, Jean-Francois, yeah, you're getting near to the end of your allocation.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, so I think that AI has to be really. I think there's something to do with AI in the project management. We are currently start working on some proof of concept and prototype at Consoltec to go ahead with this new technology.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jean-Francois.
Thank you very much.
So that was a little journey into AI, and I think that Doug, you also wanted to talk some about AI, but also just to get you going, Doug, I'm curious about your thoughts about security and what's more important, security or translation quality?
Well, hello, and yeah, thank you, Jean-Francois and Sophie. That was good talk. Yes, so I think maybe currently security is becoming more important than quality, and every day we hear about more data loss, data theft, and I think if not more important than quality, at least on an equal footing as quality. When clients are going out looking for vendors and they have any kind of sensitive content, they are going to be looking at what are the security measures around protecting their data. We've seen already that China is supposedly coming after the cures for the virus. Many of the places doing research have been hacked or attempted to be hacked. And so the threat is very real and they're very sophisticated. Even within our own company, we really have nothing to offer. We're not sitting on a pot of money. We don't have a lot of things. And yet we get attempts to hack us or to phishing attempts looking for people to give up personal information, corporate information. So the threat is very real. And I feel like that's driving the big push through security.
Yeah, we certainly hear that a lot from our customers, especially the enterprise level, but really coming down into the vendor, the LSP level too now. Are you waiting for a slide control there, Doug?
I sent the request. I'm not seeing the slide change.
Yeah, I'm not either. JF, you need to give the control back to Sonia. There we go.
All right. Okay, so we hear a lot about the different terms, and I think people tend to get confused because they see advanced automation and they think it's AI. And it's not. You will know when artificial intelligence hits your TMS or your management platform, because it will automatically be making the wrong decisions for you. And so all you have to do is look at the attempt by AI to complete the text that you're typing in when you're texting somebody, and you'll see how often it gets it wrong. And you then send that message out and it's like, oh, That's not what I wanted to say. That stupid autocorrect jumped in and fixed it for me. So yes, advanced automation is going to be coming, and it's very good. Can be very good. But again, like Sophie mentioned, not all tasks should be automated. The humans should be making those key decisions. And what we have found is if we automate too much, the project managers get very lazy and rely on the automation and then don't go back and confirm or double check things. And that's when automation will quickly bring you to an error that the human would have caught before. So when you talk about setting up templates, things like this, file prep is one of the things that I see as a stumbling block. Now, maybe this is the domain that we operate in. We get a lot of files. They're bad files. They're terrible PDFs that are image only. They have to be OCR'd. We have source data that is incomplete, truncated phrases. We have to check everything. And it's not like we can just take something and run it through the pipeline. So like Richard was mentioning, that client that does a lot of the same material, they do a lot of the product descriptions, things like that. My question on the data corruption was if they had a case where, say, a new product list came in, somebody got the data shifted off by one element, loaded all that all went out in the automated process, it went through everything. How far does that go before someone realizes, hey, this description isn't quite matching what this product is supposed to be? And that's the case where the automation can really move something through quickly. If someone doesn't catch it, you end up with bad data coming in. All right, so in this case, yes, the garbage in, garbage out. I'm always looking at it more from the source content from the client. That has to be clean. Sophie mentioned your data has to be clean. So your vendors, your PMs, your TMs, all this stuff needs to be clean, which was also true. But the data you're getting to work on also needs to be clean. And very little out there right now is actually clean data. We do patent translations, and the patents are full of spelling errors, grammar errors, incorrect terms. Somehow they got through the patent process, but they got through with errors. So the automation requires extensive error handling and logging so that when things do go wrong, you can go back and find it and go, ah, okay, that's what caused the error. This is how we can go back and fix it now. So yes, so going back to the value piece of that, when do humans add value? And how much time, lag time is in your current workflow? This is something that really is not addressed very much. This is very heavily addressed in manufacturing because everything moves through a process. You have parts that are coming in, parts get staged for this process, they go to the next step, and then something comes out the end. Well, translation is very much the same way. You have a certain amount of time to get the project done. The client says, okay, here's the job. Okay, we agree on the specification. Off it goes. Well, somewhere in there, the questions arise. The translator doesn't know and wants more context. All right, so now you have to go back to the client or you have to provide an answer. There's a lag time. You send the response back, but your translator's asleep because he's in a different time zone. There's a lag time. He finally gets the answer, he puts it in, or comes back with another question, more lag time. And so how are you removing that idle lag time from your schedule? Yeah, you have something ready to go for review. The reviewer is busy on something else. So it doesn't move, it just sits there. Again, that's all time being wasted in that process that you should be stripping out and looking at where is the value add for the human, the PM, and how do we focus them just on the value added things and remove all the non-value added steps from that. So if they're prepping files, moving data, renaming files, assigning TMs, or doing anything that's a manual step that's not involved with actually a decision or moving the product forward to delivery, that is something that I'm saying from my perspective, that's what I would expect the TMS to do to help eliminate that. And so do you want to fully automate? Well, we're told that clients want some human interaction. So if all they're doing is pushing a button and getting a translation back, they can do that through Google. Is it any good? Could be, but maybe not. But again, where's that value add for the human piece? They don't do follow-up with you. It's pretty cold. You just get the work done. And yeah, maybe you can eliminate a PM or two by being more efficient, but do your clients see that as a benefit? They've been working with the same project manager for years. They know them. They tell stories.
There's a couple
they share
questions
personal
that
life information,
pertain to machine
humor.
translation and
There's more to it than
automation
just getting
and
the work
languages. I would
done.
encourage
And so I feel like the
holding
full
these
automation
questions
works
to
for
the
some
later
things,
sessions
but may not be
deal
the best bet
specifically with machine
for
translation
everything.
later in the day.
So security.
For
We are focused with government
Young
quite a
Lee
bit,
and
one of the things coming down the
sorry,
pipe
I'm gonna
very quickly,
butcher your
it just
name.
got finalized in
Exequil?
January for the
I hope
first
I got it
iteration.
somewhat right.
They have an update
if you,
out.
I hope you're going to be
cyber maturity model certification.
thank you, HJ. Yeah.
Now,
Okay.
if you
Yeah, we have a
work
panel.
with the
Peter's
U.S.
just put in the
Department of
chat window.
Defense,
So it suggests we hold
directly,
those questions
this
really
this
pertain
can still impact
that
you.
domain.
If you're a provider of someone who is
so with that, I think I'm going to hand back to
you will be expected to be compliant to whatever level
we'll be back
is
later.
on that request
one
for
final
proposal.
thing,
These you're going to start
there was
seeing
some
around the
chat
third
going
quarter,
on
fourth quarter of this year
around
coming
about
out saying that the bidders must
MT,
meet CMMC
TM ranking.
level 1 through 5.
That would be a great discussion for the
if you're at
roundtable.
3,
So I'd encourage
level
you
3
to
is
stick
going to be
around for the
fully
roundtable
NIST
if
SP
you have the stamina
800-171
to wait to
compliant.
be that long in this
And that's
virtual
a
environment. Let's have
standard that's
a
out
group
there
chat
that
about
talks about
the
cybersecurity.
importance of being able to rank
It's not
translation memories
simple to get there.
so that certain translation
You
memories
cannot
are searched
self-certify.
through
You have to
prior
go through a
others.
third-party
For that,
certification.
I'm going to
And so
sign off
these
and
will
hand
be a
back to
challenge for
Alessio.
the smaller business. Levels 4 and 5 are very much higher level, very much more expensive. You won't see those on many proposals. But my instinct is you'll see level 3 coming out quite often. Now, this is supposed to be for NATO allies as well, so this is not meant to be a US only. They want the data to be secure, and this is not classified data. This is unclassified information. So controlled unclassified information, CUI. And so this is something, if you're not aware of it, you should be looking at this. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. That's really new and different insight, and certainly one that we need to be aware of moving forward. We can turn to some questions now. There was one question, I think this is probably going back to Doug, but if anybody else has something to say, please do. So what do you do when you find spelling and grammar errors in your source texts? Do you create that before translating, or do you request the client to correct? Do you translate junk source to correct language?
Yes, garbage in, great out. Yeah, that's what we provide.
Like it.
Yeah, so we will do the best we can to work with what they've given us without having to go back. Now, in some cases, we simply don't have the ability to do that. And if it's a truncated phrase, we have to go back and say, hey, you have these phrases that are not complete. Go ahead and get those fixed before we can do the work on those. We can start on the rest of it, but we can't do all of it. In some cases, we were asked to do a safety data sheet going into, from English to English, by the way. But the data sheet did not have the right information on it for the destination it was going to. So that had to be almost a complete rewrite to get the right information in the right format for the target destinations. And so that kind of thing, we can bring it to the client's attention. We can offer suggestions in many cases. We do not want to accept the liability of putting data into a safety data sheet. That is strictly the manufacturer's responsibility. And that's another one. You can make corrections. You can make spelling and grammar corrections. If you're saying we see a degree Fahrenheit and a degree Celsius mismatch, they don't mix, or they have 10 degrees Fahrenheit and 200 degrees Celsius. Well, those two don't equate, but we don't know which one is correct. The client does. They have to fix that.
Right. There was a question that's it's on the chat, but let's make this public. What AI about AI? What software or app do you use? Now, Jean-Francois, I think you you answered this on the chat, but do you want to say a word about the Azure machine learning? Jean-Francois, you're muted, Jean-Francois.
Okay, yes. Okay, so for now we use Azure Machine Learning, but we still are at the first step of what we want to do. So that's because we are all, we are kind of Microsoft company, I would say. We use Azure for hosting, so naturally we went in this direction.
Mm-hmm. Doug, Sophie, any machine learning solutions that are on your radar screen?
No, I mean, as Doug mentioned, when you like AI and actually having an algorithm going and making decision based on data, obviously two different things. And our system works heavily on these configurations and not AI yet. From our side, realistically, to train a machine, you need a lot of data. So we also have to always look at how much data do you actually have until a machine is trained to kind of see your patterns.
Right.
And yeah, for most of our customers, we actually don't see that there's enough data to even get a machine to a point just yet where the decisions make sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Doug, any thoughts there?
Yes, we're focused far more on making our software flexible and adaptable so that the client, when we work with clients, we try to get them to be consistent. And every time we think we have it, they do something different. And so it's those differences that screw up the artificial intelligence because they're very much based on patterns. So what we've done is try to come up with ways that be adaptive and have the work itself drive the automation. So the PM is not assigning anything. The system is assigning it based on the parameters of the job. And so therefore it's not artificial intelligence, but I would call it more advanced automation.
Mm-hmm.
I second that. Yeah.
I have a philosophical problem with using the words or the letters AI as buzzwords to market practically everything. You know,
Yeah.
our laundry detergent is going to be manufactured with AI or contain AI to intelligently clean our clothes. So let's see, we've got two more questions, and then I think we're getting toward the end of our time allotment. This is going back to you, Doug. Says, do LSPs need to get the CMMC certification? And what about translators? Yes.
If you are providing services or want to provide services to the government, to Department of Defense, right now it's DOD. They estimate within 2 to 3 years this will be government-wide. And you'll see it. It's also meant, like I say, for NATO allies. So yes, you would need to be CMMC certified. Do your translators need to be? That depends on how much you let them have access to that CUI information or the controlled information. If you lock it down that they are not able to do anything with it other than translate it, then probably they don't have to meet that requirement. They're not able to copy that data or take that data out. And that's one of the things they talked about was, you know, you can make it so they don't see the part that really makes it sensitive.
Certainly, we run into the issue of where the data is hosted, what country it's hosted, and memoQ has data centers that are distributed geographically to cater to that need, so that data has to be retained within Canada or within the U.S. That's an aspect as well.